Silicon Valley Bank, Silvergate Capital, and Signature Bank all have in common they're all broke because they were all woke. And now they're all out of business. Three major banks that is gone, done. And one of them was so woke, Signature Bank, that is the bank that shut down President Trump's bank account not long ago. Shut down his bank account. That's how woke they are. And now they're broke. So I was sitting in my office, and I just got to thinking maybe some of you don't understand what shut these banks down. And maybe you'd like a better understanding of the financial theory behind all of this. So I thought I would jump on here tonight. It's not my normal night to do a class. That would be tomorrow night at 8 Central. But this is an important subject, especially in light of the fact that before the Congress last week, whatever her name was sitting there begging for them to lift the debt ceiling. Here's a member of the Biden administration that tells the Congress if they do not print more money, that the United States of America is officially broke and that there would be economic catastrophe throughout the nation. They admit, they just said it. They said the quiet part out loud. We are broke. If we don't print more money, we're broke. So I want to explain it all to you tonight to try to help you understand how this happened so that you can maybe put, all the pieces together in your mind and sort of help you so you can explain it to maybe family members or even your children. The United States experienced the second largest bank collapse in its history. In the past 300 years in our history, this is the second largest bank collapse in our history on Friday. That would be 3 days ago, as Silicon Valley Bank, SVB, was taken over by the United States government. Shortly thereafter, Signature Bank followed suit on Sunday. So Friday and then Sunday, and then more would follow. And Silvergate Capital, I believe, was yesterday as well. All kaput, out of business, gone. Now, I want to explain what happened to Silicon Valley Bank. I need you to follow me because I got to get a little technical here so you can understand how this happened. And the reason I'm doing this tonight is because I'm listening to a bunch of ignoramuses that want to blame this on President Trump and his administration. And that's the most ignorant thing I've ever heard. I'm going to show you, I'm going to explain to you what happened to SVB. SVB is a unique bank. It's not like your little neighborhood bank. I bank here at a local credit union. SVB is what we would call a niche bank. It's got its own little niche in Silicon Valley, San Francisco, where all the liberals live, where all the woke people of the world reside, and they all use Silicon Valley Bank. Also, all of the cryptocurrencies, Coinbase, Databyte, all of these cryptocurrencies love Silicon Valley Bank. It is the more woke bank out there. And I'll explain how woke it is in just a minute. So when you have Silicon Valley, you have money. You have new technology startup companies, and they would all go to SVB to do their banking. Well, anytime you have, let's just say Tesla, or any thing that's related to high tech that's making deposits, those deposits, especially on new startups, are going to be very large. So SVB is getting these huge deposits from these Silicon Valley startups that have lots of cash on hand. So they bring all that cash, deposit it into SVB, and then SVB cannot just hold that money because they're going to be expected to pay a return on that money, right? I mean, even in your checking accounts, you get a little return. So SVB cannot hold all this cash. It's got to loan that money out, charge interest so that it can pay interest on all of this money. Well, here's the problem. They couldn't loan out as much money as they were taking in, which presents a problem for any bank. So what do? What's the solution? Real simple. They went and they bought safe investments, the safest of all investments, which is U.S. Treasury bonds. So they take all of this excess cash, thinking that they would have this money for the long term. So they go get a long-term investment like U.S. Treasury bonds. But here's the problem. Here's where it all started to fall apart. It's something that I've been teaching about for a long time now over at fhtv.tv, which is my own server. I did a class called Inflation Nation. I taught you about inflation. So the problem is when your interest rates begin to rise because of inflation, it pushes down the value of those U.S. Treasury bonds that the SVB had put all of this money in. So are you following me? Step one, step two. Now we're at step three. They've bought these Treasury bonds with cash that's not their own. But here comes inflation because of Joe Obama, because of the disease of liberalism. High inflation does what to these Treasury bonds? It pushes down the value of these Treasury bonds because they were issued when interest rates were low. But now, thanks to Joe Obama, interest rates are through the roof. So the value of those Treasury bonds does not equal to what the amount of cash was put into those Treasury bonds. So now SVB now they don't have a problem as long as they can keep that money in those Treasury bonds long term, which they thought they could do that. So therefore, it was a safe investment. So what went wrong? High U.S. interest rates began to slow down the U.S. economy. Not under Trump, under Obama. Joe Obama. They're one and the same, you understand. One's white, one's black, but they're one of the same. Anyway, I won't go there tonight. So here's what happened. As the economy began to crash, and as Joe Obama's policies began to come into play, the startup companies that had put all their money in SVB, all of a sudden need that money to operate. Why? The economy. Stupid. Isn't that what Bill Clinton said? It's the economy, stupid. It all boils back down to that economy. And when inflation is going through the roof, these startup companies are now needing more money to keep up with that inflation. So what do? Well, they go to SVB and take out their money to operate their businesses. The problem is their money is no longer in the bank. It is in the U.S. Treasury bonds, but that doesn't stop them from getting money out of the bank. And now all of a sudden the bank is facing a crisis because all of the cash has been withdrawn by the initial depositors. By law, they have to give them what they ask for. So now, once they started withdrawing, SVB, Silicon Valley Bank, has to sell its treasury bonds at a what? At a loss. Remember, inflation is now up. The value of the treasury bond is down, but they've got to sell and liquidate immediately to try to get the money back in the bank that the initial depositors have now withdrawn to keep up with inflation. So now they sell it at a loss. It was that loss that triggered the USDA. It was that loss that triggered the FDIC. And once that trigger happened, all of a sudden, all the rest of the depositors at SVB got alarmed and they rushed out, just like you and I would have done, to get their money out of that bank because word got out that SVB had sold their treasury bonds at a loss. So when the word gets out, what do we have? A run on the bank. Now, here's the deal. The FDIC guarantees the first $250,000 of your money is protected. But my friend, those depositors in Silicon Valley, $250,000 is chump change to them. They had billions of dollars that were lost overnight. Now, the regulators flagged SVB immediately, and then they started taking all their money out of the bank. Now, what happens is a run on the bank is contagious. Once one person starts running to the bank, they call their friend, say, you better get, everybody runs to the bank. Now, here's what you may not know. There are other small banks, not as big as SVB, but small banks like First Republic Bank. They have seen their shares since then fall 75%. In Arizona, Western Alliance Bank is down 80%. PacWest Bank their value has fallen to half, and it's seeing its share prices fall around a third. Now, these banks are not that large, but here's the deal. 1/3 of all U.S. deposits are in small banks. So if these small banks are falling at that rate, there's a ripple effect happening. Now, Joe Biden promised to do whatever is needed to protect the banks, and the U.S. government has promised to protect the deposits. But if their promises are as good as the way they run elections, I don't have much confidence in those promises. But I want to talk to you about what caused this and what could have stopped it. Well, if you go woke, you go broke. That's just the way it works. SVB was a woke bank. Woke. I mean, like real woke. As a matter of fact, Republican Congressman James Comer, who's the chairman of the House Oversight Committee, said that SVB is one of the most woke banks in America. It's so woke that it has what's called a safe space catch-up, where employers could share their coming out stories on the LGBT panels and boasted about its commitment to boost levels of homosexuals or racial minorities within senior staff. It aimed to be carbon neutral by 2025 and promised $5 billion in loans to climate change measures. Now, let's talk about Signature Bank. Signature Bank, another woke bank. They shut down Donald Trump's bank account not long ago. That's how woke they are. Home Depot's co-founder, Bernie Marcus, said it like this, and I quote, he said, these banks are badly run because everybody's focused on diversity and all of the woke issues and not concentrating on the one thing that matters, shareholder returns. Instead of protecting the shareholder and their employees, they are more concerned about the social policies. And it is a badly run bank. They've been there for a lot of years. It's pathetic, he said, that so many people lost money, and they did, billions and billions of dollars. Now, when America's banks are in trouble, it affects the whole world. I'll give you an example. Credit Suisse Group is a European bank. Their shares today are at a record low, down 15%, a record low for Credit Suisse Group. And now that's spreading fear throughout all of Europe about their economy. Now, y'all remember FTX founder Sam Bankman-Fried? Come on, surely you remember him. He showed us that you can get away with almost anything if you've got the correct political leanings. And this is exactly what's happening with our banking systems, with our media. They're all following wokeism. So I wanted to give you this information tonight so that you could know when you're watching the news what really went down, how it happened, and what caused it all. You know, inflation is it's something. And for many years now, I have taken my money out of the banks. All I leave in my bank account is enough to pay my bills. All the rest of my money is sitting in gold and silver. Been doing that for years. I created a website to educate you about gold and silver. It's called godsmoney.info. Godsmoney.info. Why is it God's money? Because it was created by the hands of Yahweh himself. Gold and silver, precious metals. So I want to say that gold and silver can never lose its value. Like a diamond can never lose its value because the value is inherent within the product. So I really encourage you tonight. Things are changing in this nation quickly, so quickly that nobody would have ever believed that SVP would be broke. Don't be caught off guard. Protect your investments, your money, your heritage. Protect it. Beat inflation before inflation beats you. So very important. Now, a lot of people, I want to clear something up. A lot of people love to throw the scripture out in the book of Ezekiel that in the last days that they would throw their gold and silver and their money in the streets. Well, that's not really what it says. Let me explain. That is a prophecy not about the end time. That was a prophecy about the destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70 when the temple was destroyed. And what the prophet was saying in that verse was this: when the wrath of Yahweh comes down, your gold, your silver, your diamonds, your pearls, none of that will be able to buy you protection from the wrath of Yahweh. But we're not there yet to the wrath of Yahweh. That comes at the beginning of the millennial reign, which is just a little ways off now. So until that happens, you need gold and silver. And so I hope that now you understand what happened at SVB. And I believe that this is going to have a tremendous ripple effect. So I wanted you to be educated tonight and know what you're talking about when people, want to talk about things they really. And Michelle Ball, it's godsmoney.info, info. So stay smart, put your faith in the Lord. Now listen, I hear, a lot of people say, well, I'm just going to put my faith in the Lord. Well, David put his faith in the Lord as well, but he also picked up 5 smooth stones to go along with his faith. The Bible said, sit down and count the cost. The Father warns his people before trouble comes what to do to be prepared. He set Joseph in Egypt to begin preparing for the wrath that was to come. So we can't just not do our part. We can't just sit here and say, well, I'm trusting in the Lord. Because there was a man that did that one time in a flood. And a man rode by on a boat and said, sir, hop in. And that man said, I'm trusting in the Lord. 30 minutes later, the water's coming up to the man's chin. Another boat rides by and says, sir, hop in. He says, oh, I'm trusting in the Lord. So the man drowned and went to heaven. And he said, I'm so disappointed. I was trusting in you. And the Lord told him, son, I sent you 2 boats. Amen. So let's not be so spiritual minded that we are no earthly good, not preparing for the day of trouble. As a matter of fact, Yeshua, that's Jesus, he said concerning the destruction of Jerusalem, he told his people, when you see these things begin to happen, flee to the mountains. And he told them exactly where to go to protect themselves. So let's not be ignorant of our options to protect ourselves from what's going to happen to the world. All right? And now you know the rest of the story. Good night, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow night. Do you watch my class? It's every Tuesday night and Thursday night at 8 Central. Professor Toto comes and teaches you about the Great Republic. You can watch us live on fhtv.tv. That's www.f as in first, H as in harvest, TV, like a television, fhtv.tv. Go subscribe right now and you'll get notified every time we go live. Of course, we'll be live on Facebook as long as I'm not kicked off for something. They like to kick me off every few days. I was banned for life on YouTube, but we did sneak back on there. You can find us. You got to type in my name, Shane Vaughn, if you want to find us, or if you want to find us on YouTube right there, you can click right there on that little QR code, and that'll get you to our new channel. We used to have 200,000 subscribers there. Now we lost them all, so we're starting over again. Or you can also find us right there on Rumble. That's exactly right. Or you can find us at fhtv.tv. And for those of you that would like more information on gold and silver, there's our QR code for that. Go research and then book an appointment with me, and I'll be happy to help you, me or one of my assistants. So now you know what happened with SVB. So don't let the left-wing media hoodwink you. This is the truth, because what I just told you is the only way to understand how woke went broke. I'll see you tomorrow night. Good night.